All right. Last week we read Lamb to the Slaughter and we talked about how stories are built and basic story arcs. This week we're reading The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, and we are going to talk about how we saw that in Lamb to the Slaughter, our pieces of the story arc. And your job is going to be to say and understand where those things are when you're reading The Lottery. As a reminder, our areas of a story arc are exposition, that stuff at the start of a story that lets us kind of know where are we, where is this story happening. It allows us to build a mental image of the start of our story. Then we have an inciting incident, followed by some rising action, a climax, the falling action, and then what we would call the resolution and the denouement. Now, with all these words, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slow it down, break it up. Before we do that, let's take a look and just remember, before we start using these terms with our stories, let's remember what Lamb to the Slaughter was about. A brief retelling of Lamb to the Slaughter was that Mary Maloney is in her living room and waiting for her husband. Her husband comes home from working as a police officer, and they talk in the living room. Mary's husband tells her something bad and says, "I know it's kind of a bad time to be telling you, but there simply wasn't any other way. Of course, I'll give you money and see you're looked after." Mary is shocked. She walks around the house, gets a leg of lamb from the freezer, and kills her husband by hitting him in the head. She starts cooking the lamb, goes to the store to buy groceries, and then calls the police. The police look around the house and speak to the grocery store owner. They cannot find the murder weapon. Mary offers them, the police officers, some of the dinner. The police eat the lamb. That is a brief retelling of Lamb to the Slaughter by Roald Dahl. With this brief retelling and our memory, we're building that literal comprehension skill, remembering exactly what was in the story. Let's look at some of the first pieces to a story arc. The exposition, the start of the story. As a storyteller begins a tale, they need to set it up. It would be strange if a movie started on just black screen and stayed on a black screen and you never saw a character or a place. A storyteller begins a tale by setting it up. They need to give you a picture of the story. They're going to include setting and one or more characters. If we think of Lamb to the Slaughter, we know that Mary was there. We eventually saw her husband, and then we saw police. Can there be other characters? Yes, but we remember the most important characters. And where is this story happening? It's happening in a living room in Mary's house. A literal comprehension skill is remembering who and where, being able to envision and build an image of this story. We then have an inciting event. Some people call this event conflict. This is the thing that starts to make the main character do or feel something. It's not going to be a good story if the character just wakes up, goes to work, comes home, eats dinner, goes to bed. That's not a story, that's a normal day. Stories have an event that kicks off the character's feelings or actions. In this one, what's the inciting event? What starts everything? Mary's husband tells her, "I know it's kind of a bad time to be telling you, but there simply wasn't any other way. Of course, I'll give you money and see you're looked after." Mary's husband says that he's going to leave her. That creates a problem. Mary, our character, has a problem, and her actions are all going to start happening because of this event. And then we have climax. This is going to be the last piece that I talk about today. The peak of the story's interest, the excitement, the intrigue, the most exciting part of our story is the climax. In Lamb to the Slaughter, Mary kills her husband. That is the climax of our story. Your job, as you listen to The Lottery, is to be thinking of the characters and the setting. Build this image. What is the place starting to look like? Later this week, we will look at our inciting event and our climax. But right now, your job is to think of the exposition. Build that image in your head and build those literal comprehension skills where you remember who and where.